Well, I'm delighted to introduce you today to Martin Roberts, an alumni. I'm going to give a little short bio because we're going to go into your career in quite a bit of detail. But Martin graduated from York St John in 1984, and your first job was working in a community video workshop in North Wales.
That's correct.
And then at Liverpool University as a video technician. So it's interesting to see where you started and where you are now.
Yeah.
So take any opportunity I think we'll take from that. You joined British Medical Television in 1988 as a cameraman before finally joining BBC News in 1991, and you've been there ever since.
That's right.
Okay. So the format of today, the first hour, will 40 minutes chat, all about your career, some of the stories you've worked on. And then we'll love to hear some questions from you. Then we'll give you a 10-15 minute break. And then we're going to come back and Martin's going to give us some advice on filming and shooting for news, because second years we've just done our first news day, which went really well. And we might have a look at some of your packages, which I thought were great, but let's get some
that'd be great.
advice.
Yeah.
Just using a whiteboard, not getting cameras out. First years, you will be doing news days next year, so it's all valuable. And I'm so pleased to have you here today.
It's great
so
to
thank
be
you
here,
very
guys.
much.
It really is. No, I was just saying, it's wonderful to have an opportunity to give something back to the place where it all started for me 40 odd years ago. This is the place that formed my portal, if you like, that formed my idea about production quality. You know, the whole thing about how to frame, how to light, how to record sound properly, and basically to look instead of watch, to make, to form that consciousness about what we see and what we hear and how it's formed, how it's made, and how it's perceived, how it's consumed. Basically, to become a visual storyteller. Yeah.
I thought a good place to start was just to talk us through a typical day of a news cameraman
Sure,
or camera operator.
So normally what happens is we get the either the news prospects. You might be involved in what we call a pre-shoot. So it's a longer running story whereby we have 2 or 3 interviews to do, setup situations to do, locations to do, which may take a week or 2 weeks. So that's what we call a pre-shoot. Then we have the on-the-day stuff. So I'm at the moment assigned to on-the-day stories. So you'll come into the newsroom. We have 4 shifts. So we have 4 12-hour shifts. So we have an early, a mid, another mid, and a late shift. And then we basically, if you like, the analogy is the 4th emergency service. So it's anything or everything or anything that happens on that day that we are sent to. So it could be an emergency situation, it could be basically a piece to camera somewhere, a finishing shot, a sequence, anything to do with a story that's already been shot, anything and everything. So if I take you through the last 3 days, because I basically got to York last night after doing the morning shift. So Friday was the Netanyahu protest at the Senate House, central London. So that was what we call gathering pictures. So that's pictures of the protest, what we call a vox pop. So that's interviews with protesters from both sides. Then we had a live to do at midday. Then the heavens opened. Everybody's dispersed because of the weather and there was nothing else to film. So then we left the area, having told the newsroom everybody's gone, so there's nothing to cover. So the Saturday was sent to Northampton to cover a terrible story about a teenager that had been stabbed to death. So that was arrive, floral tributes at the scene, sequence of floral tributes, interview with Vicar, because we can't name or show the individuals because they're too young. So we're what we call picture short. So we need shots in it to enable us to tell the story fuller, but we can't actually show pictures of the individuals involved. And then shots of the Magistrates' Court where the people had appeared that morning, a piece to camera and a live into the 1 o'clock. Some more filming of the area, then we leave to go back to London because the correspondent needs to come back for radio for 6 p.m. And then on the Sunday, that was Laura Koonsberg. So the brief for Laura Koonsberg is, when we have a big politician on the show, like for instance, who was it on the day? It was Michael Gove was on. So what we need of Michael Gove is we need an arrival shot. So we need a shot of him coming into the BBC. We need a sequence shot of him in the studio before he goes on air. We need shots in the gallery of him on monitors in the gallery. We need shots of the gallery in operation. And this is for a 10 to 15 second sequence before we show the clip of him talking, of Michael Gove arrived at the BBC today and was later to say this into the clip. So we need shots to illustrate that part of the script before he appears on screen. So that was yesterday. So after Koonsberg, you're kind of on duty up until about 3 o'clock, and then I hit the road to come here. And here I am. So that's basically the last 3 days. So that's the kind of variety of the stuff I've been involved with, on the day stuff. Whereas a couple of days ago I was on what we call a pre-shoot on a bigger story, not so much a bigger story, but a longer feature story. So that was it was a World War II anniversary story. So that was an interview with an historian, which is going to go into a later package. So that's a bit more considered. So that's maybe an hour or so with the guest. So that's a nice sit down somewhere with 3-point lighting, nice quiet areas where you can get decent sound. What else?
Did you do the lighting? Or
Yeah. So 3-point lighting, key fill and back. I don't know if you guys have done any lighting at all yet. Done any lighting? Weirdly, lighting is the dark art. that's what we called it years ago, and it still is the dark art, because there's only very few of us know, apparently, who knew, very few of us know how to do it really well. So, yeah. Any?
Well, should we have we got one of your packages, I think, haven't we?
Well, we've got the thing from, the live we did from Whitehall on the Friday, yeah.
This is it, I believe.
Yeah, that's the story.
Let's get more on those protests here in the UK against Mr Netanyahu's visits. And as we were saying, protesters have gathered outside Downing Street. Our correspondent Francis Reid is there. We can join her now. Francis.
Okay, so this is the live.
Hello, yes, there's probably about a couple of hundred protesters here. It's gone down from the over 1,000 that it was earlier. There were police horses lining the street earlier, as well as police dogs, a big police presence here. Because, of course, Benjamin Netanyahu was meeting Rishi Sunak, and it's, absolutely certain that they would have been able to hear the protesters here and coming out because they're concerned and say they're concerned about the status of democracy in Israel and the weakening of the judiciary there. I'm joined now by one of the protesters who've come out today, Judy Peretz-Wynn. Judy, can you just tell us, first of all, why did you want to come out here today? Can you tell us a bit about that?
As an Israeli living in London, who's been here for 16 years, I can't sleep at the moment, I can't think at the moment. All I'm doing is thinking about my Israeli friends and family in Israel who have been protesting relentlessly over the last 12 weeks against the judiciary reform that Netanyahu and his very right-wing government want to pass through government. And it's my duty, the minimum I can do is come and protest here, and especially when Netanyahu comes to London to meet with Sunak.
Yeah, it's very likely that he heard what you were saying. What was the message that you all wanted to give him today?
The message is that we are against his reform, that we will stand strong against it, and we will not stop at anything. We will continue protesting, and we will ensure that legislation and all the legislations stop.
There were a lot. Sorry about the buffering there.
No, not at all.
So maybe you could just give us an
I'll
idea
talk
of
you
the
through
prep
that.
that went on for
Yeah,
that.
so basically this is, obviously it's live, but we're not using a satellite here, guys. We're using a thing called a live view, which basically is a big box with 6 SIM cards in it. So we're using the phone network to get this sound and pictures back. And we can operate that Very, very quick. Obviously, depending upon signal strength where you are. So central London is pretty good. What can knock it off the air is if there's a lot more people using the network at the same time. So for instance, stills photographers will use the network to send their stuff back as well at the same time. So that can kind of knock us off the air a little bit. What else in terms of safety there, you can see we're quite close to a road which the police had previously closed, so it was quite safe to be there, and literally just before the live they'd reopened the road, so that basically kept us marooned, if you like, on a little bit of an island there. What else you can actually see, what sort of, we were talking about sort of these sort of subliminal way that you frame things. I've framed in a way that I learned here, the rule of thirds. So basically you have a looking room, guys. So you've got, her edge of frame occupies roughly the half of the thing, and this is her looking room, yeah? So you can, in news, the background is as important as the foreground. She's part of it, that's the story behind, yeah? And she's obviously part of the story as well, but the viewer, while they're listening, they can obviously see what's going on there. This is the big problem we've got at the minute, guys, with DSLRs. Using DSLRs in news is a bit of an issue because, I don't know if you know, with using DSLRs, you're going to get a naturally soft focus background. And that's an issue in terms of perceived form of censorship, yeah, which is what we don't want in news. So this particular camera I'm using here is a Sony Z280, which has got a smaller pickup than a DSLR, yeah. So the issues with the soft focus background are largely eliminated with the 280, and it's my choice as an operator whether you're going to get a soft focus background or not, i.e. in terms of your distance from the subject. So you can throw it soft if you want to. DSLRs, there's an issue with that. They're a great portrait camera. As a gathering camera, as a news gathering camera in terms of sequences and lives, they're pretty crap, to be honest. You know, all the kind of engineering that you're going to need for a shot like that is with the 280. It's small, it's light, it's portable, all the rest of it. And a DSLR, the connectors can fall out in the middle of the live, for instance. It's a pretty stressy thing to use, but my main point is it will throw your background soft. That's not wanted in news. Always remember, in news, the background is as important as the foreground. That's the story, that's the storyteller. And don't get confused with the fact that the storyteller thinks they're bigger than the story. Everything needs to be in focus, yeah?
So in terms of interviewing and what went on before, was it arranged to meet this?
Yes, it was.
Yes,
yeah.
okay.
So this lady here, we'd already, what we call vox popped, so we'd actually found her to talk to, and she'd given us a fantastic response in terms of her vox pop, which we'd fed before this in readiness for the package that was already being cut while this was on for the later news. She was initially very reluctant to talk, but then she became very passionate. So I thought, this is great. She was one of about 6 vox pops we did. So basically, what happens when we arrive? I'm with the producer. I give her a top microphone, and we basically walk the line up and down, asking people if they're willing to talk about things, not pressing them, but being very polite and respectful. But also very, very important if you're doing this kind of stuff is getting both sides, because we don't want to say, but we're trying desperately not to be biased here. So it's talking to both sides as much as we can. I'm going to go into parlance here, but basically getting voxes in the bag and sending them back so they've got them at base. They can start the edit, and then we finish the voxes and concentrate on prepping for this live, which normally takes about 5 or 10 minutes. So we find a position. I need to talk to the main control, the master control room at New Broadcasting House in order to get what we call a line. So basically, it's using the telephone network. I need to talk to them. They need to see and hear this in terms of good quality. So the signal needs to be good here. and then we basically wait for our window into the news channel. So they've already booked this for us and they're waiting for us to come up, and we came up right on time. What I had to do, basically, producer was very, very keen to get more voxes. We need more voxes. We need this. Well, actually, no. I needed to take control a little bit there in terms of the fact that we need to come away now, guys, because we need to set up for the live. Oh yeah, I forgot about that. Oh right, yeah, let's do that. No, oh, can we just do one more? No, we need to set up for the live, and that's where things tend to get a little bit further.
So is the producer an extra that we don't see there?
Yes.
So we've got a reporter.
Reporter there,
Yeah.
that was Francis, and
Yeah.
Hannah is the producer who's probably on this. So what we've also got there, guys, which is quite interesting that you should know this, is a backwatcher. So in recent times, we've largely become the target of individuals that don't like either the BBC or the media in general. So they begin to attack crews or make a real bother, pushing, shoving, getting in the way, waving, basically trying to disrupt things. So we have to have what we call a backwatcher, personal security. So he's over here, overseeing all of us from this side, watching my back, watching the ladies' back, the guests, anything else from missiles, people coming over, pushing, shoving, pushing things over, throwing things at us. So there's me, there's Francis, there's Hannah, and there's Glenn over there with security that you don't see.
And is Glenn from the BBC?
No, Glenn's from a private security company.
Only for something like this, you wouldn't.
Yeah. I mean, you can insist on it as a crew. I need security. Often it's a bit of an oversight, but I know from working in areas where there is the potential for trouble, especially if you're going to do a live like this, you're wide open. So I don't want to provoke that kind of thing just by being there. And usually, 9 times out of 10, there's no problem at all. The Brexit stuff was very ugly, very ugly, very, very in-your-face stuff, very loud, very persistent, very stressy, because obviously you're trying to provide a broadcast quality image and sound, where somebody's basically trying to take you off the air because they don't like not what you're saying, but the very fact you're there and trying to report what's going on. They don't like it.
Yeah. I don't know if you remember, was it during the elections?
Yeah.
When you had the music going on, people were playing songs, weren't they?
Yes.
Because they knew that nobody could do anything about that, and you could hear it in the background when a news report was going on.
That's absolutely right. I mean, there was a guy in the background there, just over here, who insists on coming along with basically a boom box and playing Irish folk music. And you can hear it in the background, and obviously he's been there for years. And his is a personal protest about child abuse. But he makes himself a persistent nuisance. There used to be another chap who used to walk along with a sandwich board about no more nukes, and he had a psychotic dog that basically we insisted that had this thing at a muzzle because he set the dog on us. And we're all trying to do this job. That's all.
Not trying to put you off or anything.
Not trying to put you off.
Brilliant, real insight there. Thank you very much.
Not
Actually,
at all.
one more question. There's
Yes.
a reporter.
Yes.
So what's the reporter doing while this is all? Does the reporter get the vox pops? Who's asking?
No.
for
The
vox
reporter, interestingly, Hannah and Francis are very, very switched on. Before I got there, Hannah and Francis had been filming on their phones. So they'd been getting stuff, really, really good stuff of this demo beginning, and choirs and all the rest of it. And obviously, if a producer's interested enough to want to film themselves, we offer courses to show them how to use the phone in a decent way. And obviously they can get the shots back quicker than I can because I'm setting this thing up. But they've got the inclination and the aptitude to be able to, and the nous to be able to get this and get some stuff yourself. Again, with all the disciplines I have as a cameraman, so 10 seconds of that as a still shot, let the action move through. 10 seconds of that and counting it in your head, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and just count, and don't do any moves. When we get back to base, I still habitually follow my rushes through the production process. I go to the editor and say, was everything okay? I've been doing it for 30 years. I still need his praise or her praise to say, yeah, you're fine, thanks. I'm glad it was you. Why are you glad it was me? Because your stuff's disciplined, because it's 10 seconds. The stuff cuts itself. And this place is where that started. Yeah?
Great, thank you. My next question was about some of the most memorable stories you've worked on. So I'm just going to see if we did have some stills here, didn't we? So I don't know if there's any that you would particularly want to talk about. This
particular one here, this is an interesting one. This is Stephen Hawking's last TV interview before he died, which we were. This was actually such an honour because I drove to his Cambridge College, drove up to reception, pressed the button and said, "Hello, it's the BBC to see Professor Hawking." And I just thought, do I believe what I've just said? And it's the BBC to see Professor Hawking. How does that feel? And so we spent a wonderful afternoon with him. And it was quite a challenge, obviously, because there's this whole audio delay and things, but because his mouth isn't moving, there's no issue with what we call sync. So we could put his clip, basically, and edge the clips up over the top of what we call the noddy shot with the correspondent pal out, and take it from there, basically. But that was a real privilege to do that kind of stuff.
There's another one that's going to...
That's an interesting one, because I didn't know half the stars. Being a person of a certain age, I couldn't recognise any of the acts. So you have to say, "Who's that?" And I had a younger producer with me who was quite serious, like, "Oh, that's such and such.
Better get that one.
Oh, that's such and such. Okay, right, okay."
So who was there? Can you remember?
No.
No.
So this is what we call a red carpet gig. So obviously it's the Brits. So we arrive there and we're sort of given a little space behind this enormous rail, and the talent, graciously walks past with their beautiful outfits, all the rest of it, and have their pictures taken. And we're waving at them, the producer's waving at them, saying, "Could you come and say a few words, And occasionally they do, occasionally they just happily ignore us. But I really can't think of who was that.
Well, it's one of a million jobs that you do as well.
Yeah. I mean, this is part and parcel of the variety of the stuff that we do. Yeah, but again, this is the rough and tumble of the job. So this is a media scrum, what we call a scrum. So there's the
is
other
it a bun fight? Is that the other
scrum,
way?
bun fight, all the rest of it. There's the other cameraman who's lost the shot, and I managed to get in the right place. But effectively, I'm basically using my elbow to push him out of the way to get the shot of this guy. This is, I don't know if you're across this too, but this is a guy called the Fake Shake, who had been in the Old Bailey, which is behind us there, on charges of being somebody who he wasn't, masquerading as somebody else in order to extort money. So we needed to get shots of him, and that's him as he's bundled out of court, still trying to protect his identity. But interestingly, this chap behind me is my producer. That's Jeremy, and what Jeremy's doing there is back watching. So I've only got one pair of eyes. I've got eyes in the back of my head, and I'm also walking backwards. So there's curbs, there's bollards, there's lampposts, and you're walking back, and you can't see. So what Jeremy's doing is steering me. So I'm basically following him like this, and Jeremy's steering me. So he's my second pair of eyes there. Now this, to me, is teamwork. So when we're in the field, we rely on each other so much, yeah? Because I'm also live. You see the cans? You see the things on there? So I'm literally, this is live. This is going out to a live audience. And I was saying to Tracy before, one of the great, fantastic things about this job, I could have 6 million people on my shoulder. Yeah, I'm live.
No pressure.
No pressure there.
So you mentioned another story that you worked on, the Grenville story.
Yeah. So we were talking about really not very nice stuff. There's such a variety of things. The one thing recently that sticks in my mind is Grenfell. So Grenfell was a particular challenge. I got there early, it was still ablaze. And Graham Greene, the novelist, used to use a phrase which is quite interesting. He says, you have to put your soul on ice, you have to detach yourself, and you have to realise that if you don't take these pictures properly, professionally, frame it with your disciplines that you're going to learn here, 10 seconds, count it. Buildings burning, 10 seconds wide. 10 seconds, plume of smoke, tilt down to close-up. 10 seconds. 10 seconds of single flame coming out of window. 10 seconds. 10 seconds of another wide as more people arrive in the foreground. Move the camera 45 degrees. 10 seconds of, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. 10 seconds. You are detached. You are detached. You are a camera. You are recording. You are a storyteller. Yeah? If nobody does this, nobody will know. This might happen again. Yeah? And that's the kind of thing that kind of stays with you. And at the end of the day, you can sort of sit down and think, geez, did I really see that? Did I really go through that? Am I capable of doing that kind of detachment? And yeah, at the end of the day, yeah, you surprise yourself. Jesus, did I really, really, really detach myself from that awful thing? Yeah, and those are your shots. And is that a good, I don't know. You know, it's very, very, very personal. But, you know, I didn't know I would be sent to Grenfell the day before. So you have to be able to prepare yourself mentally for absolutely anything. And I say at the start of the show, the 4th Emergency Service. Don't know. Maybe it's a bit glib. I don't know. But I don't know.
No.
Still out
It
there.
certainly was during lockdown, wasn't it? We didn't
Lockdown
have
was
TV, I don't know what we
something
were doing,
else.
yeah.
Yeah, lockdown was something else. There was, you know, I was what do they used to call it? A such and such a special worker. So I was allowed into various places. I would take shot after shot after shot of wide, empty streets. Central London completely deserted. I could never ever do justice to the silence. You know, I mean, there was literally nothing. Now, how do you do justice to that? How do you get the storyteller in chief, the correspondent, to be quiet for 6 seconds? Let's just be quiet, yeah? It's so tricky. But the weirdest thing was to be taken to, or to be sent to, these huge marquees that had been set up. Around town, there was one out in northeast London, there was one up Putney Vale, big marquees with refrigerators at the back. And I was filming away this thing, and I'd been told what they were for, and I'm getting this out. Here's the old sequence: 10 seconds, 10 seconds, 10 seconds. Get the sequence. And a guy comes up to me and says, "What's this, mate?" He said, "Have you got kids with you?" He said, "No." He said, "Well, I don't want to frighten you, but this is just in case it gets really bad. This is for bodies." He said, and his face just dropped. I said, "This is it. You know, we're expecting this place to be full of dead people." A huge marquee with a fridge at the back, and that kind of thing sticks with you, because not a lot of people knew it, because you know it just wasn't out there. But that's the kind of access you're going to get to things. You know, those are the things you're going to see. Those are the things you're going to have to sort of absorb. That was another lockdown memory type of thing.
Yes.
Just in case things got very, very bad. But yeah. The old discipline kicked in. 10 seconds, 10 seconds, 10 seconds.
Let's all sit down so we can see
Sure.
the camera there. So we're going to ask some questions from you in a minute, but I just thought it'd be quite interesting to talk about how you actually got to get that job at the BBC.
The Babe, yeah. So I initially applied in '84. So, you know, obviously graduation's coming up. I'm looking for things to do, places to go. My dream job was the Beeb, to do this, oddly enough. Is that a dream? Yes, it is. That's what I wanted to do. So when I first applied to do this at the Beeb, you needed to be an engineer. So my predecessors were all electrical engineers, they were physicists, they were scientists, basically, oddly enough. And then in the later 80s, the Beeb moved the goalposts in terms of recruitment, so they would take people that had experience of production in all kinds of other places. So I'd worked a lot. I'd worked for 6 years in medical television. So there were all kinds of very, very, very interesting things I got to film there. But what I also managed to do when I worked in medical television was develop, if you like, a bedside manner. So this isn't all about taking pictures. It's about getting on with people. It's about getting on with people that have never seen a camera before. It's about getting a rapport. It's about not being shy with people, but being respectful and good with people and giving them time. So not just rocking up and saying, right, I want to do this, right, I want to, yeah, don't sit there. Not being rude with people, not shining lights in their faces, respectful, polite, all the rest of it. And I kind of emphasised that in my first board at the Beeb in terms of being good with people, being a communicator, because communication is a two-way street, because I want to learn from you guys as much as you want to learn from me, because I need stuff back from you as much as you need from me, you see. So, and it was emphasising that thing about being able to talk to people and having that skill, as well as being able to focus and frame up, is being able to talk to people, yeah?
I think what's also quite interesting is just where you got that 6 years experience to then get the top job.
Yeah.
So it was, I mean, not that a great job working in television, but not necessarily what anyone would think that's what I want to aspire to be.
Exactly. So it was a bit off radar, oddly enough. It's like educational technology television, teaching. So well, that's not broadcast, is it? It's a bit unsexy type of thing. But I was determined to get behind a camera. You know, that was my passion. That was my joy. That was my inspiration. I'd always wanted to do this. So, in any way you could, wedding videos, all kinds of stuff. But just stay behind the camera, and don't watch. Look at the image. What's so good about that image? Why does it arrest? What's so bad about that image? Why is it so awful? You know, get that creative thing going, but also question it, yeah? That's the important thing.
And I guess this applies to anything that anybody wants to do, because some will want to be reporters,
Yeah.
Others will want to be, freelance,
Yeah.
write for The Guardian or magazines or whatever. So that kind of advice applies to whatever anyone wants to do.
Yeah. I mean, it's you know, it could start anywhere, but there's more than one medium, so to speak. You know, you would not believe the standing the BBC has got internationally in terms of, I mean, okay, we get knocked all the time at home, but when we go abroad, I was years ago in Florida, and I was talking to an older gentleman, and we were talking about jobs. He heard the accent. He said, "Oh, who do you work for?" I work for the BBC. He said, "You work for the BBC?" I said, "Yeah, we used to listen to you guys in Vietnam. You were the only guys we trusted." And I was speechless, you know, because he didn't trust his own media. The US media were biased. He said, "No, we get the straight story from you guys." And I got it again when we went to the D-Day celebrations, and these Frenchmen are buying me drinks because I've got a BBC lanyard. He said, "Vive la BBC, vive la BBC." He said, "You were part of it." He said, "If we listened to the BBC, we would be shot." You know, okay, it's so fantastic to have you here, part of it. And it's like, you forget this. But in terms of getting in there, give it a go, you know. I mean, when I got in, I wanted to do this, but I got advice to go into the Beeb, do anything to begin with. So my very, very first job was as a film archivist, oddly enough. And then I thought, I'll give news a go again because I'm already in. So you work your way around in the organisation. It's like a branch of the civil service. So you're going to find a position there that you really want to do, but you might have to do 3 months of clerical stuff.
Do they still have Ariel magazine?
It's online.
Yeah, so they advertise jobs internally. So if you work for
It's
this,
internal. You've got to get in.
then they advertise jobs over there. Sometimes it is just internal.
Yeah.
So that's how you move around, isn't it, within the BBC?
Yeah, that's exactly it. Yeah, and it's all based on the civil service, basically. So I am a public servant. So you know, the public pay my wages. As a consequence, I need to act like public servants as well. So there are certain things protocols that I have to adhere to in order to behave like a public servant.
Watch your tweets.
Yes, hugely. Impartiality is especially on the road in front of other people, you can't possibly comment. Yeah? That's the Beeb.
Any questions?
With the rule of impartiality, would you say that makes it a bit harder in terms of certain angles when you use, so like you've got to be careful not to show that as that when you've got to be careful on your angles, would you say?
Yes, yeah. Very much direct the shot. So obviously you've got your rule of thirds sorted out, but and again in news the background is as important as the foreground. The background is often the story. So you need to find out what your parameters are in that shot in terms of what you're going to be showing. So for instance, if we're talking about this, the body language of the person you're talking, you need to see this shoulder and the eye is led into the shot this way. If I turn my back to it, it's poor, yeah? The body language is not good at all. So we turn the shoulder to, and I talk to you like that because I'm the medium from you to that, yeah? But that kind of parameter about what you can and can't show, you need to sort out beforehand. For instance, if there's going to be children in the shot, you know, you need to be able to not have those in the frame. Oftentimes, if things happen in the shot while you're recording, you need to have the wherewithal to be able to tighten the shot, to exclude them. Or if you're handheld, you're not stuck on a tripod, you can swing slightly, yeah. So yeah, good point, valid point, yeah. Yeah.
When you're talking about your backgrounds for the Netanyahu story, say if there's other media organisations as well wanting to film the same thing, do you get allocated certain spaces so you can film there but make whatever shot you want?
Well, interestingly you should say that because we set up on the cenotaph, so next to me there was CNN, and I think further on was Sky. But we'd spontaneously set ourselves up in this area, right opposite. So we more or less got the same shot. So if you're at home and you went through a matrix, you probably think, well, they're all the same background. For that reason, sometimes the police put us there as well, because for our own safety, and they might sort of put some fencing up to keep us behind, type of thing. Because in that kind of situation, there is every possibility that we could get pushed out of the way and into the traffic, which is what the police don't want to see. Yeah. But yeah, sometimes it's an issue in that we're all going to feature the same background.
Yeah, because I don't know if you've got like allocated certain space.
Well,
say, look, you're filming there, say ITV in there, Channel 4 in there.
Yeah.
And then you just got to make the best of it.
We have to make the best of it, yeah, to be honest. I mean, it's interesting when we did the G7 international conference down in Cornwall. I remember the Americans didn't like us filming in the hotel. So we set up the live position in St Ives, looking towards the hotel, and they came to see it, and being the all-powerful, they said, no, we don't want you featuring the hotel. We need you to move the camera that way, which meant filming out to sea. So it's a beautiful view and all the rest of it. So immediately our lighting situation goes out the roof because we need to match background and foreground. So we need to double the amount of lights we show. But cutting from one to the other. You go from one reporter at St Ives to another one at Falmouth. They've both got the same background. So you've got this medium shot of this head with a horizon behind it, and we'll cut to that with another one with a horizon behind it, which aesthetically was a bit of an issue, but it's basically because the Americans said, you're going to have to move that camera. Thank you very much. Any other questions?
On the way to like the stories that you called out to, do you start planning the shots in your head then?
Yes, you do. Yes, you do. Yeah. So the more notice I've got of what I'm going to do, the better it is. So I can storyboard in my head, literally. I can think, well, I can do this, and I can do this, and I can do this, and consequently, I can bring more to the story. And the core of that is communication in the team. Yeah. So we're normally driving to the story, and we're chatting about it and how we're going to do this and how we're going to do that. And sometimes you'll have seen something on TV that's impressed you in terms of a sequence. Oh, did you see such and did you see how they did that? And, you know, we madly plagiarise each other because there's only so many ways to tell a story. You know, there's only about 5 or 6 stories as there is. So we tend to play. I mean, I'm a massive Stanley Kubrick fan. And if I get a chance to do a Kubrick shot, what I call a Kubrick shot, I'm going to do it. And whether or not the producer knows what I'm doing or the correspondent knows what I'm doing, I don't really care because I love Kubrick. I like to get Kubrick out there. So I'm going to get, if I can, a Kubrick shot. You know, I study Kubrick here, which is a parallax shot. So everything's in focus, lots of ceiling, lots of floor, and they're off in the distance. It's a 2-shot. Great.
And with features, do you find you get to be a bit more creative with your shooting?
You can do, yeah. You've got a bit more time to be able to do what we call setup sequences. So a setup sequence is a kind of an illustration sequence of the person we're talking about. So it's usually a walk in the park. It's usually a pull focus of them doing something. And that's always a competition to get the most original setup sequence because news can be, because the spine, the structure of news is time and turnaround time, because it very, very quickly outdates. So a lot of the times we have to work to a formula of how we do things. That's why news tends to look a bit samey. And you wonder why. It's because we've only got half an hour to turn it around. An hour to turn it around, a day, 2 days. That's why we rely on tried and trusted, if you like, ways. I mean, I tried experimenting here 40 years ago on different ways of doing things. And inevitably, because when you're against the clock, you come back to a tried and trusted way of doing it. I mean, anybody that can innovate and for the story to still come through, fill your boots. Do it. If you find a different way of doing it, great. Have you seen that? That's brilliant. Wow, well done. You know, it's interesting working with correspondents that know you've studied film and TV, that you know how sequences work, that you can effectively and convincingly compress time. You can turn half an hour into 10 seconds in film. You can do that. That's easy. Just watch this. You know, I'm doing a sequence of a teacher finishing his day, leaving the class, closing the door. What's the shot that illustrates him coming home in 5 seconds? And it's a close-up shot of his table in his hall with his keys going down and saying, "Hi, I'm home." That's it. We're in 5 seconds. We've done it. We've telescoped half an hour of his journey home into 5 seconds. Using the filmic language, yeah? But it's that kind of stuff that people, you know, you can effectively use to tell that story.
Any other questions? I've got lots of questions. Yeah, what sort of hours do you work then? So is it
12-hour shift.
Yeah, and so is it 4 days on?
4 days on, usually 4 days on, 4 days off, yeah. Depending on if you get sent away to war zone, for instance, that'll be obviously longer.
Yeah.
Depending on the, you know, a normal shift day is as I say 12 hours. But the story might go, I mean, Grenfell just went on and on and on. I did about 15, 16 hours because, you know, you just couldn't leave the spot by the end of it. But yeah, on average, it's a 12-hour day. And you'd probably do a couple of stories in that day. And on the day, it might be quiet, you might do nothing. You might just polish your lens. Other days you'll do 3 stories and you'll be all over the place. You just don't know. Like you said, if you know what you're going to be doing, it's great because you've got the comfort of being assigned to something and you're on your way and you've got pictures in your head, you've got a sequence in your head. Then the phone rings and they say, no, we want you to do this. Oops. That's when it becomes interesting because you now have to rethink that. So you're out of the comfort zone then and you're into another zone.
So when you have to get from A to B,
Yeah.
do they sort that out for you? Is it up to you to sort it out? You just jump in the car?
It's
and
a
you
bit
have
of
to
both.
get
Yeah, it's a bit of both. You know, you're going to be using your sat nav to find a place. The biggest problem, it's really weird, the biggest problem in London that we have is parking, oddly enough. So if we're sent to places like the High Court, the Old Bailey, so the Crown Court, Westminster, then it's usually a case of having to find a car park because it's you know, you need to be there for a certain time. It's generally a good thing to get there very early because you're going to get a spot. But it's something as mundane as trying to find a car park and basically having a receipt at the end of the day so you can claim it back. It's something as mundane as that. But you need to know, you have to have a good knowledge of central London, and anybody that comes to work with us, I'm normally detailed with showing them the patch for the day. It takes me a day to show them Westminster or all the rest of the places that we normally go to. But as long as you know, I mean, there are no problems filming, but it's very stressy trying to get around London. Very stressy. It's an obstacle course, basically.
But you'll have camera operators all over the country.
Bureaus,
presumably.
yes, we do. So
Yeah.
so we have bureaus in Salford, Leeds. I mean, the guys in Edinburgh are busy today with the SNP story. So we've got the Nations. We've got BBC Cardiff. We've got BBC Bangor in North Wales, all over the place. Plymouth. What else have we got? Norwich. Sadly, we've just had to close Cambridge and Oxford. But now that patch is covered by Norwich or Birmingham. So we've got these areas that are sort of divided up into various responsibilities. So what normally happens, if a big story would happen in a particular region, the local guys would cover it first. They'd be the first response. They'd be there. Say, for instance, the spillage in Poole, that stuff that's gone into the water, the guys nearest to Poole would have covered that. So the guys maybe in Plymouth would have gone down to done that. So they're the first response. Second response would be national news. So we would be on our way down from London to cover that as well. And it's a weird moment, that actually, because we call it bigfooting. So it's almost like you see in the movies when the local sheriff has the crime on his patch, and then the FBI turn up. It's okay, it's ours now, it's fine, okay, you can go do something else, so that's fine. So my big reporter turns up, and it's some of the guys feel really bad about it. I mean, it happened, funnily enough, it happened on Saturday. So we're in doing that Northampton story, and the local correspondent is already there with his cameraman, and then we turn up, and then he realises it. That just knocked me off air because National's turned up. They're going to feature it on the bulletin, so he can't do his bulletin because it will already have been seen on national news. And this is BBC Politics.
But on Look North, though, you see it on Look North, and then you see it again on
National.
You think they've just done that, so why are you doing it again?
That's exactly it, and that's a massive criticism for all of us is duplication. So what this guy who's already at Northampton's got to do, he's got to completely rethink his coverage, his package, in order to still get on. So he's got to think of another facet of the story. So we do the initial thing about the appearance in court of the two guys, the floral tribute, all the rest of it, the interview with the vicar. So he's got to think, okay, there's another facet of the story, the fundraising So there's been £16,000 raised in 3 days for the family. Let's go and do that. So he's kind of said, oh my goodness, at least I can do that. I can still get on, type of thing. But
We'll get there first, so
yes,
at least they can get all this stuff before you
yeah, but we call it bigfooting.
Just before we go for a coffee break, I was going to ask, I think quite often BBC trainee schemes come up. I mean, I'm obviously Channel 4. And
Apprenticeships,
stuff like, yeah. So I was just wondering if you had any advice really for prepping for that.
Oh,
because,
goodness.
And I know you're not HR,
No.
but just any tips or
Yeah.
anything
Well,
on that?
I've been on boards for people that are coming in, and I've just been impressed with people that are really, really interested in it, that can talk about it in terms of, did you see that thing last night? Did you see this? Do you want to see some pictures I took that I'm really proud of? What do you think of this? What do you think of that? And it shows an engagement, which is really, really encouraging in order for them to, because I know they've got what it takes to progress in what they want to do. You need to be interested in this, guys. You really, really need to get it under your skin.
Whether you're a camera, whether you're a reporter, whether you're a writer, whatever you want to be,
Yeah.
start thinking now.
Sound.
It's almost like a
lighting.
job now. You start to
Yeah,
think
yeah.
about how. And I know some of you have done this. Things have happened in you've got your cameras out and you've filmed it. You know, you've done that, and that is great. Just do things like that, because that when you go for that interview, you'll
Yeah.
be the one that think, wow. So you did that story, you did that story, and you did that story. Well, you're going to be above this next person I interview because they haven't yet got anything
Yeah,
to show.
that's
So
exactly
start
it.
thinking now
Yeah,
about
yeah.
what you want to be,
Yeah.
and just show that you're interested. And you might end up doing something completely, it might not be exactly what you're going to do, but it does show that kind of news awareness, doesn't it? And
Massively.
passion.
Yeah. And for
Yeah.
goodness sake, shoot in landscape.
Oh yeah.
Please, please shoot in landscape. And tell your friends to do the same thing. Because you've seen stuff going out and you think, that looks terrible. Why did they shoot it on portrait? Can you imagine if the JFK assassination stuff had been shot on portrait? Oh sorry, it happened over there. I'm on portrait. Less said the better. Landscape, please, folks. Landscape. And spread the word.
Okay, so we're going to get more advice really on shooting for news, because it's something that we all have to do, and it's tricky, isn't it? Going out there, having to all the things you've got to think about. Presumably, do you do sound as well?
Yeah.
Yeah. So a bit of advice maybe on sound as well, which is one thing that we always struggle with a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's always the poor relative.
Yeah. But so important.
Yeah, massive.